So today I wanted to show an example of a new system I built for a client. This is for the SST project for a district. So it starts off with a teacher thinking that a student needs assistance for something that's happening in the classroom. So then the teacher fills out a Google form. The Google form then generates a spreadsheet using Form Publisher. It's a pre-formatted spreadsheet with all this fancy stuff in it. The team meets to decide if the interventions are needed. So they decide, yes, this kid qualifies. And then they decide which interventions a student needs. And they choose yes or no on your different interventions. And when you do that, that actually opens up the spreadsheets that contain that information. Then the teachers that are involved with the students start to collect data, and the system automatically updates and builds graphs on the fly as the teachers collect data. So let's move forward now and show a demonstration of how this works. In the previous infographic that we were looking at, we saw that after a teacher identifies a student that might need some help, the teacher fills out this form, the SST referral form. And there's a bunch of information on here, and I'm just going to scroll through, show you a little bit of that. So they fill out this form and they submit. When that happens, the spreadsheet then is generated from this template. And then the teacher and the team, the administrative teaching team, will now have a spreadsheet that is populated with the information from the form. So this is the information here that was populated by Form Publisher into the form. Created this blank spreadsheet. Then what we've done is done a whole bunch of fancy stuff here on this spreadsheet, and I've gone through and filled out some of the information. So once the teacher team decides that they actually are going to have provide an SST, they mark yes that we're going to do an SST review. They put a reason in here, and then they also here, this is important, they choose a start date of when they're going to start collecting data on the student. And that's a pop-up menu there, so they can choose that data, and then that data flows to all of our sheets. So here's one of the collection sheets. So if one of the interventions is check for understanding of directions, then we populate all of the teachers that this student's going to work with. And by the way, that's done here. So notice if I change this to Tom Moses as a teacher, notice that that automatically changes on understanding, copies, and seating. We're just pulling that data from there. Also notice if I say no, we're not going to check for understanding, that sheet disappears. So we set up a script in here that allows me to show and hide which one of the sheets are being used by the interventions. So essentially, the team has met. They've decided that they're going to go ahead and have this student have these interventions, and then the teachers start collecting the data on the aforementioned interventions. And that's over a period of 30 days, basically I think 30 school days. This is a formula, by the way. It pulls the data, as I mentioned, it pulls the data from here. So if I switch the start date to September 25th, notice my understanding starts at 25th. And then the rest of this is actually a formula that calculates and ignores weekends. So you can see here that we 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then September 30th, October 1st are gone, and we start again on Monday. So it's set up to collect that data. Really all the teachers do then is they observe the whether or not the student has done and whether the intervention has been successful. The check mark means yes, it's been successful, it's been observed in the classroom on these particular days. So each teacher in this situation has to fill that out. We do the same for understanding, copies, and seating. On each page, then, we're also building this graph. Individually, we're building a graph page on each piece of that. And then back on the summary page, we're summarizing and summing the data for each teacher on understanding, copies, seating, and so forth, these different interventions, and we're pulling that data in here. So again, it's an automated system that helps the school track interventions and how the students are reacting to the interventions, and it's all graphically being collected. The nice thing too is that it does actually print into a nice document should you want to. There's a print document of that particular page if one would need to put something in a paper copy in something. So that's it. That's what we're working on. We start with a form. We then collect the data in, of course, a Google Sheet that collects the data. Form Publisher generates from this template a pre-formatted document that does all the summary of the information as it's collected.